Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we have even more DevBlogs to go over. Now, I believe over the past just 2 or 3 days, they've released about 9 of these DevBlogs. Some of them aren't really lengthy or major. A couple of tiny changes to test ships and such, so we won't be worrying about those. But we will be going over the two main ones, which is the next step for submarines, and the Khabarovsk is being removed from the tech tree for the Soviet nation. So we're going to go ahead and go in the order that these were released. If you wish to read along as I read aloud, links to these will be in the description as always, and any images or artwork that are posted here will be put up on screen. Let's go ahead and get started with the submarine next steps. Alright, Update 10.9, Submarines Next Steps, details and further steps of submarine testing. Submarines have come a long way from the first announcement in the summer of 2019. 3 tests, a temporary submarine battle type on the live server, and again a test on a separate server in October 2020. During this time, we collected a lot of feedback and statistics based on which improvements were made to practically all mechanics. Oxygen was replaced with battery charge and later with dive capacity. We updated sonar and hydrophone. We added ASW aircraft for cruisers and battleships. Submersion mechanics were revamped. Commander skills for playing and countering submarines were added. Most maps received a detailed underwater world. Submarines have now been participating in ranked and cooperative battles for almost 2 months. We are grateful to you for the battles played and for providing feedback that helps shape the next steps in the development of submarines. Changes to submarine gameplay. Based on your feedback and collected statistics from the current submarine test phase, we have planned a number of changes and improvements to the gameplay. In Update 10.9, we will add ASW to most battleships and cruisers from 5 to 10, tiers 5 to 10. Exceptions will be Dutch cruisers and hybrid ships. This change, in addition to allowing all classes to counter submarines while underwater, also removes some of the counter-submarine burdens from destroyers. Classes already in the line of fire and often focused on capturing points. With the help of ASW aircraft, it will be easier to deal with submarines, enabling you to strike at them from a distance and choosing the affected area without forcing a destroyer to change course and head toward the submarine to drop its depth charges. This is very true, and a concern that was brought up pretty early by quite a few players is that DDs are already tasked with basically being the Swiss Army knife of this game. They have so many duties they have to perform, capping duties, anti-DD duties, torpedo screens, spotting, and that's just talking about them in general, not going down the individual lines and what a lot of the lines are designed to do. So forcing them to be the main counter to submarines would have definitely just absolutely crushed them in terms of their duties. Alright, other changes. Torpedoes will now be launched one by one. The gameplay will become more dynamic, and this change will give you more control over the torpedoes fired. Changes to torpedo characteristics. German submarines were worse at dealing damage to enemies. To balance submarines in this regard, we've improved the maximum damage and chance to cause flooding of German submarine torpedoes. German submarine torpedoes. Good God. My English today is not that great. Alright, torpedo tubes on German submarines are primarily located on the bow of the submarine, which helps when attacking targets at long range. To shift gameplay on German submarines more towards long-range engagement. We've also improved the torpedo range. On the other hand, American submarines can be quite effective at medium and short distances since they have torpedo tubes located on the bow and on the stern. Therefore, to encourage American subs toward this style of engagement, the range of their torpedoes has been reduced. Alright, we've already talked about this already. If you want to see my full thoughts on that, you can go check out that DevBlog video. Alright, the increase in the depletion of dive capacity in Update 10.8 had too much effect on the comfort of the game and the effectiveness of submarines, and the addition of ASW for a large number of ships will further increase their effectiveness against submarines. Therefore, to make the detection of submarines a little less impactful in the gameplay, we have reduced the consumption of dive capacity for the detect. Okay, that's pretty much the last DevBlog already. Oh yeah, they even linked to the other one. Okay. Alright. So, what is... Okay, yeah, here's the feedback. This is one of the big bits right here. Before getting to the details of the upcoming update, we would like to discuss your feedback regarding submarines. One of the most addressed points in your feedback was homing torpedoes. We understand that for some of you this may seem like an unusual mechanic, but with the changes that we made and the peculiarities of the submarine weapons, this mechanic can become a full-fledged and an interesting part of the game. We created it we created it taking into account how submarines acted in reality, tracking a target and determining the course to the point of impact. Of course, we had to adapt these things to our game conventions. In order to give the opportunity to inflict significant damage, taking into account the small number of torpedoes in each salvo. With this, we tried to convey the atmosphere and naval operations on submarines as close to reality as possible within the framework of the game. We hope that in combination with the updated underwater world, you will be able to immerse yourself in the submarine feeling. So, that right there. I mean, if you do look at submarines, and I'm just looking at it from their point of view, I'm not taking their side on this argument, I'm just looking at it from what they're saying. These ships, in real life, it took them quite some time to track a target, calculate its speed, calculate the speed of the torpedo, calculate where it's going to impact the ship at, how much they have to lead it by, and all this jazz. Anyone that's played, what's that submarine, that U-boat game, Steel Wolf or whatever, you know what that's like. It takes a lot to do all that math, make all those calculations, get everything right, and then launch this one torpedo and hope that it hits. So I can understand how they're saying, in order to make it work in the game, we kind of have to do this. The only thing I could think of is you'd have to give these submarines like almost battleship load time on their torpedoes, like 30 seconds, 20 seconds. And even then, you're only firing 1 or 2 torpedoes. So imagine if like you're playing Mutsu, and you don't have any guns, but you have your 2 torpedo tubes per side, and with the 20-second reload on the torpedo tubes. But now you're firing at ranges of like 12 and 13 kilometers. You're not going to hit a lot. I'd say it'd be even well below the average torpedo hit rate, which I think is like 15% for the average player. So it'd probably be like the single digits in terms of actually hitting your target. So I can understand how they're saying, we didn't want to introduce this class and make it basically the most painful thing in the game to play, so they added in the homing torpedoes. Now, of course, homing torpedoes didn't really happen in World War II. I think there was a couple of prototypes like super late war, but that didn't really become a thing, I think, until like the late 50s, early 60s, in which they were reliably able to home in or be wire guided to the target. So I can understand from a gameplay point of view, if you're introducing this class, it needs to be a class where you can do damage and participate in the game. So I get it, but they've messed with the homing a lot. They've increased it, they've decreased it. They're in kind of a midpoint right now, to where it's not exactly like the crazy homing torpedoes that it was in the like first or second round of testing. It's kind of more of a gentle homing, and if you've seen submarine gameplay, you know what I'm talking about. It's not like like Ace Combat Missiles, where they just beeline straight for the target. Alright, additionally, ships opposing a submarine have several ways to effectively counter this mechanic. The location of the ping hit is displayed on your ship, which allows you to determine from which side the submarine is attacking, and to try to minimize potential damage. That is true. Torpedoes stop homing at a particular distance from the target. At the same time, the point of their homing is counted, considering the lead. Therefore, if you're headed toward torpedoes with your bow, the distance at which torpedoes stop homing increases, and the chance to evade increases as well. And like if you go watch the, God, what video was it? I think it was the Submarines and Ranked video that I did a little while ago. It is very true. If you know where the submarine's at, and you know where the torpedoes are coming from, which you can easily tell with the ping, it is quite easy to dodge the torpedoes. But the ping in and of itself is a different story, and how you get rid of that too. And I do believe they addressed that here. For update 10.10, almost all ships will have ASW weapons, so there will be no need to fear that if a submarine makes a mistake, it will be able to submerge without consequences. That is very true. Oh, here is that section. Another frequently cited point is the use of damage con to reset torpedo homing. We understand that for some of you this may seem counterintuitive, but so far we do not see the need for changes in this area. We see it as an opportunity for you to work with the damage control. In this case, you choose, depending on the situation, what is better to do. Extinguish the fire, stop floating, or get rid of torpedo homing. Moreover, the ping itself does not create an additional load on the damage con, but only redistributes it. What do you mean by that? After all, if another ship were in the place of the submarine, if it could set you on fire with HE shells, this is another layer of the game that needs to be taken into account in battle, which is easy to understand but quite difficult to master perfectly. You need to choose the right moment to use the right consumable. For now, we want to continue testing the mechanic in their current form to look more closely at how this will interact with the other changes. At the same time, we remain open to your feedback, and if the current implementation does not work well enough, we will think about how to improve or change it. Okay, here's my thing about damage con. Recently in the game, HE spam's gone through the roof. CVs can now easily, consistently drop you with torpedoes, with dive bombers. Of course, the vast majority of carriers in the game have HE dive bombers, and we're getting a whole new line of HE spammers now with the Pan-Asian cruisers. Especially at higher tier, it's the damage con is so important, especially to battleships and to large cruisers like super cruisers and battle cruisers and such. So now you're having yet another thing be put on damage con. And the thing about the ping, sure, a submarine could ping you, but now you have to wait and see if torpedoes are actually being fired at you to clear the ping. And you don't know that. They could just keep pinging you over and over and over and over and over again at almost no cost to them. It does increase their range a little bit, and it doesn't drain their dive capacity anymore, I do believe. There was a point where if they kept pinging, it would continually increase their range to a maximum point, which was, I think, almost their maximum firing range, which I think they should add that mechanic back in to discourage submarine players from just continuously pinging a battleship or any other ship. Because if you keep pinging them and you don't fire the torpedo, the surface ship player is just going to be like, okay, well, I don't know when this is coming. If he can just continuously ping me, you know? He could ping you 20 times and you don't know if a torpedo is coming. He could send a torpedo along with any of those pings. But I don't think there's a major downside right now, too. I think it might decrease your dive capacity by no, it actually doesn't. I don't think it does at all. In the current iteration. It's hard to remember because we've been through so many iterations of this testing. So if you're going to leave this on damage con, you need to add a downside to just consistently pinging from the submarine's point of view. Like, make their detectability go up. Because if a submarine is actively pinging their sonar, that's loud. That's a very loud act. So it should be pretty obvious after 10 or 15 pings where that submarine is located at. So I think that would be a way to counter this. The other best solution, like I've said before, is to add in degaussing. Degaussing was a real method used in World War II to deactivate magnetic fuses. So they could add it in as an additional consumable on ships and give them like 3 or 4 charges of it, or basically be a second damage con. That's my 2 best ideas to counteract the just consistent pinging of enemy ships, or the abuse of the ping mechanic. Alright, often there are proposals to changes in the format of battles from 12v12 and increase the number due to addition of submarines. At the moment, we are not considering this possibility for various reasons. One of the most important is an increase of the number of elements that you need to monitor, and the other is an increase in the load on both servers and your computers. Furthermore, 12v12 battle already creates many events that you have to keep in mind if you want to have a successful match and lead your team to victory. An increase in the number of players taking into account the specifics of our game, open water, and often the ability to shoot from one part of the map to the opposite will significantly complicate this task. At the moment, we would not want to resort to this solution and believe that it will worsen the overall gameplay. There would also be more contacts and interactions in game that will have to be tracked if there were more players in battle. And lastly, increasing the number of total players would impact the influence you as an individual have on the battle result. In conclusion, we believe that this is not something the game needs right now. So that's a better response to them just saying, you know, we can't do it because of game limitations. They do explain it a bit more, and I do appreciate that they're, you know, trying to explain stuff, be a little bit more transparent than just saying we can't do it. But I do understand that it is a 12v12 designed game. Random battles is balanced around that. Many ships in the game are balanced around a 12v12 game mode, especially CVs. But other classes are designed with that in mind. So adding more ships to that would, of course, cause them to go in and have to go in and redo a lot of things. But they do address I think what would be a decent solution to this right here. Some of you also mentioned that the introduction of submarines into the current format will reduce the number of gunfights between ships. This is true, but our game is developing and new types of interaction between ships will appear. While there may be fewer targets to be fired at long and medium distances, this will add new interactions and a new layer of gameplay. For examples, judging by the test results, you enjoyed dropping depth charges. We believe that this will add another variable to battles that will make each game you play even more unique and provide new experiences that you will enjoy. That wasn't it. I think they were talking. I was looking for the part where they were talking about how they're limiting the number of submarines to 2 per side. But yeah, sure. And what they say is true there too. We won't be shooting at, 12 ships. We'll be shooting at 10 ships and dropping depth charges on 2 ships. But you gotta think about that too. How often in battle do you actually shoot at every single ship on the enemy team? If you really think about it, unless it's a battle that lasts the full 20 minutes or you're just in the middle of it for the entirety of the battle, not very often. But at the end of the day, yes, this is less surface ships on the surface and less HP in the overall battle by a pretty good amount because these submarines do not have a lot of HP. Alright, and here comes the big news. Rented submarines in random battles in 10.9. Submarine testing and ranked battles will continue in the 10.9 update. Currently, they prove themselves worthy in this type of battle. The upcoming changes will further improve their gameplay along with making it more comfortable to play against them. Submarines have taken a long time throughout numerous test stages, from their both closed and public tests and closed servers to taking part in ranked and co-op battles. We analyze thoroughly not just data obtained, but also feedback from you, trying to answer it in detail as well. There are plenty of changes made through all test iterations, basing on that exactly. The visual changes, mechanics reworking and improving, and balance adjustments. The last and certainly one of the most impactful changes we made based on your feedback was adding ASW to nearly all surface ships. Now we come to a new and very important stage of testing, submarines participating in random battles in Update 10.9. We would also like to share why we want to have such a test. We know that being transparent about our plans and reason for change is a critical part of your overall feedback, and we want to make sure that we can continue to build a long and close relationship with you. The first reason is that random battles is the most popular battle type in the game. By adding submarines there, we will be able to assess their condition and to receive feedback from their largest number of players to decide what the next step should be. The next point is the 12v12 battle format. We have already tested submarines in ranked and co-op battles, but the 12v12 battle format changes the battle pace and its intensity significantly. Ultimately, while testing submarines, battles will unfold completely differently, bringing new tactics, maneuvers, and many other changes. Of course, it is important to limit the number of submarines in battle. There will be no more than 2 per team for the initial 4 minutes of waiting for the first player in the queue, and no more than 4 submarines per team when waiting more than 4 minutes. We made this limit rather as a precaution to reduce the waiting time for players in the first days of the test, and do not expect such battles to occur frequently after the first few days of the test. Numbers of submarine will be mirrored for both teams. Introducing rental submarines to battles will allow more players to try them, get used to playing them, and of course to develop tactics to counter submarines. A crucial consideration is that the submarines were a very unusual class, and we do not expect the popularity will be high. Roughly speaking, we're aiming at a 4 to 8% popularity at Tier 10, while we will be watching this metric very carefully and take action to keep popularity in that range. The distribution method for testing is also very important. Real submarines at Tier 6, 8, and 10 will be available from random bundles from the Army just as for ranked battles. This random distribution will allow us to carefully control the number of ships of this new class, avoiding frustratingly long queue times. We will also take into account your feedback about having commander slots taken up by commanders left over after the Renault submarines disappear. Submarines will now be rented out without a commander. We completely understand the importance and seriousness of taking this step. We will analyze the presence of submarines in random battles, and we will act promptly if needed. We will do our best to keep you updated on the overall status and share any changes and tweaks that we will be making throughout the testing period. We ask that you keep providing us with excellent feedback and help us make submarines a fully integrated part of Warships that we can all enjoy together. That is a long dev blog. Okay. So they're coming to random battles. I am surprised at the amount of people that act like they're completely blown away that this is happening. I mean, this is the end goal of the submarine tests, adding them into ranked battles, random battles in full. So, it will be interesting to see them in a proper 12v12 game mode. We've seen them in a 12v12 mode as far as co-op goes, but that's playing against bots, and bots are, well, bots. Playing against real players is a very, very, very different thing. And my prediction is that, from what we've seen at least, from the way the community's reacted to submarines, is that a very large chunk of the community does not like them. So, I predict that the second a submarine is spotted, it is going to be absolutely dogpiled with the ASW aircraft, with depth charges, with everything. I don't think they'll be very survivable, at least in the first couple of days. And limiting them to 2 per team is, I think, the ideal goal for how many should be allowed into battle. Now, they did explain that they are, and I don't know if they're doing this anymore, but a couple of DevBlogs ago, they said that these submarines are basically going to be taking up the same slots as DDs. So there's going to be no more than 5 DDs or a combination of 5 DDs and submarines on one side at a time. But it seems like, again, they're aiming for 2 per team, which I think 2 per team is okay. But again, like they said, in the first couple of days of them being out, they're going to be very popular, so they're going to allow 4 per team. But like any new thing that gets added into the game, they're everywhere the first 2 or 3 days, and after that, they chill out, and their population drops tremendously. So I don't know how impactful they're going to be in a 12v12 game mode. If we go off of the experiences I've had in the past, which is on the test servers and the specific game mode and in ranked battles, they'll be kind of like a slightly more stealthy and annoying DD, but again, they are so incredibly frail that they really can't survive being just focused down, because they die so easily. One good depth charge run, and if you're not at max depth, you're going to lose all of your health, if not just most of it. It's a very frail class, is what I'm saying. Now, we'll see how it goes. I am very interested to see how they're going to play in random battles. So hopefully I'll be lucky enough to get a couple in the random bundles that they offer. And these aren't like the early access random bundles. You get them for free. It works just like it has for ranked. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. Either get the submarines or you get some coal instead. So we'll see how that goes. Other big news: the removal of Khabarovsk from the Soviet tech line. So, here we go. Soviet Tier 10 destroyer Delaney has been added to the game for testing. At the beginning of 2022, she will replace Khabarovsk in the Soviet tech tree. Delaney is a project of a Tashkent-class destroyer leader that was improved, taking experience gained in warfare into account. She differs from her prototype in the composition of her torpedo armament and more advanced artillery systems, which are of a post-war design. The ship is armed with 6 130mm guns mounted in 3 twin turrets, has solid armor protection for a destroyer, and is equipped with efficient torpedo armament. And there she is, the Delaney. That is a super modern looking destroyer, especially with that superstructure. At the beginning of 2022, Delaney will replace Khabarovsk in the tech tree. She is a more logical development of the branch concept and is similar in gameplay to the Tashkent, while not having the same big differences in characteristics with the branch as Khabarovsk. The most significant difference from Tashkent will be the improved armor of the ship. After the replacement of the ships, the following changes will be made to destroyer Khabarovsk. Khabarovsk will become a special ship. The cost of the ship's post-battle service will be decreased. You will be able to assign commanders from other ships of the same nation without penalties and retraining. Current commandos will keep their speciality. The ship will be added to the armory for coal. Khabarovsk will remain on the accounts of its owners if the ship was researched but not bought, sold, or the branch was reset. She will be invoiced into the player's account. The ship will keep its unique upgrade in any purchased permanent camouflages. If permanent camouflage type 20 was not bought, it will be credited. All players who own any permanent camouflage for Khabarovsk will receive the Type 20 permanent camouflage for Delany. The ship herself can only be obtained after researching and purchasing it in the tech tree. And here's well, I think they really do win some brownie points. Permanent camouflage for Moskva. In Update 9.5, the branch of the Soviet cruisers saw a similar change in the tech tree, but Moskva was replaced by Nevesky. As part of those changes, players who own permanent camouflages for cruiser Moskva did not receive any permanent camouflage for Nevesky. Now, the rules for crediting camouflage when replacing ships in the tech tree have changed, and we decided to credit additional camouflages to the owners of the cruiser Moskva. All players who had any permanent camouflage for Moskva on their accounts at the time of the release of Update 9.5 will receive the Type 20 permanent camouflage for Nevesky within a week after the release of Update 10.9. Those who already have the Type 20 camouflage will be compensated with 5,000 doubloons. That's something that got brought up in last week's look back video at Moskva, how when she got shifted, people weren't credited for the camo that they bought. Now, almost past a full patch later, you're now finally being credited with 5,000 dubs if you already have the Type 20 camo for both Nevesky and Moskva. So good on them there for finally righting that wrong. Alright, so let's take a look at the Delny. So I do quite like the Moskva. I like the Moskva the Khabarovsk. I do like the Moskva quite a lot too, but I do like the Khabarovsk quite a lot. So here's her stats. So she has 22,700 hit points with 19 millimeters of plating. Now, we don't know if her exact armor layout, so we don't know if she has that 50 millimeter strip like Kaba does, but since they said it's a Tashkent with improved armor, I'm going to assume it has some type of plating like that. So 3x2 130mm guns with a firing range of 11.5 kilometers base. Maximum HE shell damage 1800. It can pen 22mm of armor without IFHE and an 8% chance of causing a fire. AP shells do a maximum damage of 2600. Both HE and AP shells have a velocity of 950 meters a second. They reload in 5 seconds base and 180 time of 18.6 seconds. Okay. Torpedo tube. She has 2x5, 533mm torps, maximum damage 15,100, with a range of 10 kilometers, 60 knot torpedoes, and the torpedoes reload in 114 seconds. And they're detectable by sea from 1.2 kilometers. Quite the detectable well, not the worst, but not the best either. Alright, speed. Maximum speed 43.5 knots. Alright. I'm assuming that's without engine boost active and without the flag on. Turn circle radius of 760 meters. Rotor time 5 seconds. Detectability range by sea 8.5 kilometers. Available equipment. So she gets damage con, repair party, and engine boost. Okay. I don't know. I like Khabarovsk better. I mean, just from playing her so much. Yeah, sure, it's a better Tashkent, but why? I mean, I guess if they want to make the line make more sense, sure, but okay. So new tier 10 Soviet DD. Now's a good time to grind to the Kaba, though. You get a free tier 10 special ship with an improved economy because of the reduced cost in post-battle, and you get the camo too, so you get that boost there as well. But yeah, I mean, Kaba is a very good DD, and except for them just want to make the line make more sense, sure. Why? I mean, what was it, like 3 or 4 patches ago when Kaba was not that great because she didn't get the improved the reduced damage from battleship AP. Sure, I could see back then because Kaba wasn't that great back then. But after that she got the reduced damage from battleship AP, she's quite viable now, especially after the commander rework. She is a very strong DD right now. So I think she's a solid ship. There's not really much need for this. Now, granted, she's not the most played ship right now. It's mostly people that played her back in the day that still really play her a lot in battle, so that might be why, but okay, sure, make my Kaba a special ship. I mean, and Kaba's got to be one of the older DDs in the game. I'm sure quite a few players have her, so free tier 10 premium, special DD for a good chunk of the player base. So yeah, if you don't have Kaba yet, now's a good time to grind the Soviet DD line. It's a fun line, especially when you get to tier 8. That's when the fun really starts to kick off. But yeah, okay. I guess we'll see what the Delaney is like when she comes out at the beginning of 2022. So guys, one very big dev blog there with the submarines. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 30,000 subs, just past 28,900 subs a few days ago, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you're all having a wonderful Monday. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.